Hello everybody, welcome to the Boxing Science Podcast. This is a very special episode where we're going to be reflecting and reviewing the last 10 years of Boxing Science as it is our 10th birthday. So we're going to be looking at how we started Boxing Science, some of the key moments in terms of in the ring and out the ring, how we've developed Boxing Science as an online business, coaching, education, workshops, and what are the potential changes that we need to make in sports science to further improve the practices in boxing and combat sports. So, Alan, 10 years.
Well done, mate.
Yeah, well done.
Thanks for putting up with me.
Yeah, thanks for putting up with me, mate. We started it out in 2014, but the boxing kind of journey started a little bit earlier for both of us, really. A lot of people ask, like, how did you get into boxing? You know, not coming from a boxing background, you know, have you boxed before? And I have to go, I've trained a bit and everything like that to try and justify the reason why I'm in boxing. But like the reason why I was so interested in boxing and to be a strength and conditioning coach in boxing is because I'm mad, like passionate about training, weight training, running, watch all the Rocky films, wanted to train like Rocky from a very early age. And then as I was getting into strength and conditioning and personal training and everything, I saw Alex Ariza training Amir Khan and Manny Pacquiao. And I was just like, right, that is exactly what I want to do. I want to train boxers to achieve peak physical performance and be as fit and fast and strong in the ring. But there were very lack of opportunities there. So like, I was like thinking, right, I need to build up my experience in different sports and potentially going towards them different sports because there were no job opportunities and really no opportunities to be working in boxing. But then out of nowhere, like yourself, got into boxing. So how did that come about?
So I was working at the university doing a PhD at the time, and then also working with different athletes that were coming through the university and having testing done, and then going to football clubs and doing testing, having athletes come through that were preparing for the Olympics and Paralympics. So relatively early on in my career. And one of my colleagues at the university, Dave, got a call from Eddie Hearn. And he said, I've got this boxer. He's going to be pretty good. We think he's going to be world champion, but he had a really tough fight. And that boxer was Kell Brook. So met up with Dom and Kell, and his dad, another nutritionist, called Dave. And we put a plan together for him for a fight. That was successful. He got an early stoppage, didn't he? Yeah. And then started working with Dom, with Kell and some of the other boxers as well. And that led for about 2 years or so. So from that point up until the world title shot that he had against Sean Porter, which I was lucky enough to be invited along to go out over there. But before that, we hadn't done anything in professional boxing, anything in amateur boxing. You know, we just worked with a range of different athletes. So we had good broad understanding of how to provide sports science support and be successful in that, but nothing in boxing whatsoever. Yeah.
So we'll go back onto like kind of the maybe some of the challenges around that with starting off, because you've got that limited experience in boxing, you've kind of gone in at that top level, and also like talking about the training camp with Kell Brook, because like obviously that world title fight is 10 years as well. Yeah, it's gone past so quickly. But like when yourself and Dave Hember started working with Kell, that kind of saw like there's going to be a change in terms of sports science delivery, because like now most boxers have strength and conditioning coaches or have done sports science testing or something like that. Whereas like then, I remember there being a press conference, about like, Kell having this new team around him, how he's going to improve so much with it. So it was like such a new thing. So I was like, they're just like, actually, there is going to be a change in sports science and SC approach in boxing. So that kind of inspired me to then start not at the top level, because I weren't a practitioner that could go at that top level. I was still a university student, yet to be accredited. And then basically there was a student boxer in the gym, because basically I was working at Hallam University. We provided free strength and conditioning services to all university athletes, and there were always like support for teams, so volleyball, hockey, rugby. They all got that support, whereas like there wasn't like a big kind of boxing influx in the gym, where there's just this one individual needed a program. I decided, right, I'll do your program, use it as a bit of a case study, and also get my foot in the door with Sheffield City ABC. And then that led me on to working with like some amateurs and some professionals, and just started kind of building up that momentum. And some of the challenges were for me then is not knowing how to train a boxer. But because I was at such I don't want to say it to them about them, but I was at a lower level.
Yeah.
They were talented boxers, but they weren't at the level that Kell Brook was at. He was at the world-class level. So what were the challenges for you to put in a world-class consultancy service for a world-class fighter?
Yeah, gosh.
In 2012.
We didn't know anything, did we?
Yeah.
We didn't know anything about anything. So, if you break things down scientifically, as much as you want, and we can go into some detail about that. But first of all, it's like the culture in boxing is unlike any other culture, isn't it? And like the gym environment, how the coaches work with the athletes, how Dom had the relationship with Kell and the other fighters as well, and pretty much everything revolved around Kell Brook in the gym at that time. So working out those relationships, understanding Kell and how he worked and how his mind worked and what he was really good at and what he was not so good at. So he's very good at taking instruction. And he would pretty much do whatever you said or whatever Dom said would go. So thinking about that, thinking about training loads and how they structure the week and what they do and what they've done before. So like learning all about that environment and how boxers behave in certain situations if they're under pressure or they're energy restricted. All that was completely new to us, and we did make some mistakes and and perhaps do some things and say some things that we shouldn't have done at the time, but you just have to quickly learn from those things, don't you, and adapt. So that was like the environment that we had to quickly learn about. And the other thing from a scientific perspective is what you would do to build a program is you would look for some kind of evidence to say, right, these are the demands of the sport, therefore we need to work on these aspects that will then improve performance. But there was absolutely nothing, certainly nothing of a very high quality, one in professional boxing, few pieces on amateur boxing, but it's a completely different sport, isn't it, really? Especially when you get to the top level, when you're in world title eliminators, which is what Kell was in at that time. So there was like absolutely nothing to base ourselves on. So we had to quickly like piece together a training philosophy, just based upon conversations, relationships. What do you want? What do you want him to do? How do you want it to work? What are the energetic requirements from the nutritionist? How much weight does he have to lose? What happens when he makes weight? Just so many different factors that you have to just like quickly piece together without really having any evidence.
And that's really refreshing to hear, because you had to do that because through necessity, because there wasn't that evidence.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot more research that have come out. Like a lot of our training philosophies have been built off the research that we've done, and also the amount of experience that we've got. And we could be like, right, this is the blueprint to elite performance. This is what we need to do. We need to get you strong, get you explosive. We've got all these different exercises to do. We've got our 30-second max out sprints. Yeah. This is a key for you to get fitter. Yeah. However, it's very individualized. Got lots of different athletes from a flyweight to heavyweight, different cultural backgrounds, different ethnicities, different sexes, genders. So like, you still have to have them conversations now, even if you haven't got the evidence. Yeah. The fact that you've gone in and with no evidence there and stripped it all down, having a conversation with the athlete is still really important, because like for me, I'm like thinking I've had a recent conversation with an athlete is in where do they feel that they're strong in? Where do they feel like they need to improve? How do they feel in terms of their fitness in a fight? Mm-hmm. You know, some of them say, well, I feel quite fit in terms of like punch output, but in terms of working up in spikes and working through the gears, that's where I struggle. So that's where I'm like, right, this is where we can put in this protocol and everything. So it's quite refreshing to hear that you had them conversations then without the evidence, but them conversations are still really important now.
Yeah, I think really helped as well that Dom was very engaged with the process. Yeah. He was driving a lot of things, and he wanted the data. He wanted we joke about saying, you know, tell me the numbers, things like that. What are my numbers? And Kell was very numbers orientated, shall we say, not necessarily data orientated, but numbers driven. He liked to know what scores he was getting. And then try and beat those scores.
They don't need to know the physiology and the science behind everything, but can they see that they've improved by 10%, 15%, 20%? That gives being data driven helps an athlete motivation and the confidence in the program and in the process, but it doesn't need to be like over communicated at the same time.
Absolutely. And that's another thing that was a challenge, is what is the level of communication that you can give? So the amount of information that you could give Kell was clearly different to the amount of information that you could give Dom. That was different to the amount of information that we would give to the nutritionist.
Yeah.
So there's layers of information that you have to understand what is appropriate at each level. Dom was really good at saying, right, give me a brief overview here. Okay. Right, I understand. What do we need to do now? Well, we need to do this now. We need to work on central conditioning, for example. And that's one of the things that we worked on.
So what are the key things that you worked on in terms of like, what did you discover? What testing methods that you potentially put in place? And also like, what were the key training methods from a physiological point of view?
Weight was an issue, always was, with Kell. Huge welterweight, huge. So
well documented as well.
So that was always a primary concern. Strength, he was just, you didn't need to spend long with him in the gym just to understand what an absolute beast he was.
Yeah, he was a beast.
So it's like strength wasn't so much of a priority, but conditioning was. And so I think when we first tested him, his VO2 max was like low to mid 50s, something like that. I can't remember what it was in litres per minute or what his weight was, but it was somewhere in that region.
It'll be on the handwritten paper, because didn't have computers back then.
It was on an actual stone tablet. So it wasn't great. So straight away you're like, right, okay, we need to improve that VO2 max, and we got him up to like 66 mils per kilogram per minute. And that would have been.
That's really high end still now. Like the highest that I've ever seen is like 72.
Yeah,
that's from a featherweight.
Yeah. So, and that would have been a couple of weeks out, maybe three weeks out. Dom didn't like to go too close to do that final testing.
Yeah.
So, and again, there we had to work around sparring as well. So he got tested.
Yeah.
during one of the heaviest weeks of sparring, because
so it probably were even better than that.
Yeah.
So what methods did you get to improve that?
It was like traditional central conditioning, like 4-minute intervals. Went up to 8-minute intervals with him.
8 minutes. 8 minutes on, 2 minutes off.
2 minutes off. Yeah. We didn't do a lot of that. But we did that. 30-30s, of course.
Yeah.
But that wasn't for a long time. So we did spend a lot of time doing 4-minute intervals, 5-6 minute intervals, and touched on 8. And then over time, that's when we then brought in the intensity, just, brought in the 30-30 type runs. But they were the main conditioning methods, and strength. That was just basic strength. One thing we didn't do as much was mobility. So that's something that we've now got in our program that we recognize as a really key aspect of the program. That's something that we didn't have much structure in, and therefore we didn't do it as much as we could have done. So it was just basic strength training, sound fundamentals in that, and then pretty basic from what we would prescribe now, conditioning, interval training sessions, two, three times a week with one recovery or off feet session. We used to do like a stepper session.
Yeah.
So I used to do that as well. And in terms of testing to identify that, it was a lactate profile, which we do now, and then a standard VO2 max test.
Yeah.
So nothing fancy.
And you developed the 30-15 test from working with Kell as well. Some of the boxes.
Yeah. And then,
We'll talk about the 30-15. That's got to be in there at some point.
Yeah, and then all the other tests just evolved from that as we've learned and tweaked and understood.
It's quite good to hear that something that is really basic but really effective has worked at that top level. And sometimes you might see like our athletes that are still are working on very advanced conditioning methods or very advanced strength training methods. And the reason why is because they've been on the program for so long. Yeah. And they need a new stimulus for them to keep improving. Yeah. Whereas Kell and many other boxers that start the program can make big changes in a very short amount of time with just basic training methodologies. And another good thing from that is that the lack of kind of scientific evidence that is there for boxing, but you've highlighted what are the performance needs, and then you've taken a scientifically backed training method to put it onto there. Because sometimes you get like people on social media going, well, where's the evidence for that? But if you put a few things together, there might not be something that is absolutely 100% direct.
Yes.
Right, this is 100% direct for boxing performance, but we can make relationships by using like an array of scientific evidence. Yeah. So that's like you working with Kell from about 2012, 2013, you had the Devon Alexander fights that fell through. Yeah. He had a few decent fights in the interim, and then he went for the big one, Sean Porter. Yeah. IBF welterweight title. Yeah. Carson, was it Carson?
It was in Carson, yeah. Yeah, we had a few weeks in Las Vegas doing final camp preparations, and then flew to Carson.
So you went to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
2 years ago, you hadn't even been in a boxing gym before. Then you found yourself in the top ranked gym.
Top ranked gym, yeah.
Mayweather gym.
Yeah, and the Mayweather gym.
Any good stories from there?
Well, the guy in Mayweather gym tried to sell me sweat cream. I was like, you know what my PhD is on? On thermoregulation. Let's talk about how this induces sweat. It was basically just this. It was just like moisturizer, but with, like deep heat menthol smell. Yeah. So I was like asking him about, what do you mean sweat? Oh, this, everyone, boxers need to sweat to get down to weight. So, you just like lather this sweat cream on you. Yeah. I was like, right, okay, yeah. How much? I can't remember how much it was now, but it might have been like $50 for a tub or something. Yeah. Like, do you think I am?
Yeah, but there's still people that do use it as well. Yeah. But that even like kind of the Epsom salts in the baths and stuff like that is like gives you that kind of placebo effect of oh, actually this is working, instead of just getting into just sweating.
Can't deny that. Placebo effect, it can be really, really important. Kell didn't do any sparring there, but Kid Galahad did spar there. And they spar 5-minute rounds.
5-minute rounds.
30 seconds in between.
How did they find the changes in the volume and everything like that?
Barry absolutely bossed it.
Yeah.
Absolutely bossed it. I can't remember who he sparred now. He was due to fight him. I can't remember who it was now, but yeah.
They did a few rounds with Linares as well, didn't they?
Yeah,
Jordan Gill.
Lee, Jordan, Atif. Did a few rounds with Linares, but with Barry, it was like, right, well, 5 minutes. Was like, yeah, no problem. They were like, yeah, no problem. 30 seconds, like, absolutely, yeah. So first round,
get that advantage.
Bossed it. Second round, it was another 5-minute rounds. Third round, they then went 3 minutes. One, bossed that as well. And then they might have done another one, another 3-minute round, but 1 minute might have turned into 2 minutes. And then I think like 4 rounds, I went, we've done enough there. So Barry absolutely pinged this guy.
So you went to Las Vegas first and then LA, and that was for like heat acclimation, and because it was in the summer, weren't it? August.
Yeah. Well, indirectly, in the top ranked gym, there was no air conditioning.
Right.
At all. Me being a scientist, I took my science suitcase, didn't I? Yeah. So we had this. I had a thermometer, that would do temperature, humidity, pressure. So it was like taking it in the gym. It was like 35 degrees in the gym, like really, really humid, like really oppressive. In this like big gym, no aircon whatsoever.
It's a physical advantage to doing that, because I know a lot of gyms in the UK actually blast the heaters and training in the heat. Yeah.
So he will have gone from Sheffield. There's no aircon in the Ingle gym, so it's pretty hot in there anyway. To Las Vegas, where it's 35 degrees, really, really hot, humid, and then sparred. Can't remember how many rounds it did, but did a lot, and we were there for a good 2 weeks, something like that. So we'd have got at least some medium term and probably some long term heat acclimation effects from that. So things like lower resting core temperature, better sweat rate, which is crucial when you're making weight as well. And he had a massive sweat rate, huge, probably 2.5 litres an hour. Which is absolutely huge. That's advantageous when you're making weight. So it would have, we had some, it wasn't planned. It was just some indirect benefits of sparring in the roasting top ranked gym. Linares was there at the same time. The younger lads got to spar with him, Barry and Jordan.
So it got some adaptations from that. So if you're working in a top gym in the UK that can afford the heating, would you say to have the heating on?
Not always, because it can make you too hot, can't it? And decrease the quality of your work. So it's got to be planned and controlled. So it did struggle to start with, but then
maybe for like your fitness sessions or stuff like that.
Yeah. There's always advantages, and there's a lot of research now that's coming out with some epidemiological studies on the use of like saunas and things like that, which is why we're a proponent of heat training and in heat acclimation, because it has some general benefits as well as some specific sports benefits as well. So heat is good as long as it's managed and well controlled.
Yeah, that's good. So staying on the Kell Brook versus Sean Porter subject. So you go from Vegas to over to LA.
Yeah.
Big fight.
Yeah.
Like what were the kind of key moments and reflections from fight night?
Well, the weigh-in, making weight went very well. He had a 16-week camp. It was a long old slog for him.
Yeah.
But it meant he was in a good position for making weight.
Yeah.
So he made his weight really quite well. And it looks absolutely immense on the scales, and he's probably best he's ever looked.
Yeah, and Sean Porter noticed that as well when he said, "Why is he sweating?
Why is he sweating? Because it was outdoor.
Yeah,
it was at the stadium. It was outdoor in direct sunlight, almost midday.
Yeah,
and Kell was sweating.
Yeah,
and like
so was that well hydrated?
Yeah, it was just not completely dry out. He still had enough sweat to control his body temperature in the heat, and that agitated Sean Porter a little bit.
Who has struggled with the weight before that?
Yeah.
So he was struggling, dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Gone for the kind of old school methodology as well.
Yeah. There were lots of little mind games as well. And Kell was very mentally strong.
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, there's like people play delaying tactics all the time, with like media workouts and when you're going, when I'm going, things like that. So he was just like, if he's making me wait, I'm going to make him wait. Yeah. Because obviously Kell went before Porter in the media workout as is tradition. Yeah. So you're just like, you're going to make me wait. You're going to mess me about. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I think then he got into the ring and then did a lot more than what he was. I think so. There was all little mind games going on, and it was very, very interesting from that perspective. And then on fight night, it was just loads and loads of confidence. Yeah, just absolute confidence and belief, and no real like nerves or apprehension. And what I got is I found there was a whiteboard, got some pens, and wrote down some of the things that the team and the group had been saying to each other throughout the 2 or 3 weeks that we've been there. So this is where chocolate brownies came from. So I think we're like writing things like, chocolate brownies, and he was just having a look at that and thinking, chocolate brownies, and the other stuff on there like my time and like fast and world champion on all that kind of stuff.
Like some like positive cues.
Like
Good for positive self-talk. A lot of stuff like kind of with the Olympics, seeing some like videos of like athletes doing positive self-talk and everything like that. Obviously social media is great for sharing stuff like that now, but back then there wasn't really stuff there where you can kind of learn from. So like that's one of the first times that I saw like this confidence wall,
like a confidence wall, confidence board. Like and the new on there, and that like and the new as it like people shout it a lot now, don't they? But that got shouted a lot in the changing rooms before as well. And then like everything went to plan there until so we're in the corner. My job in the corner was timing the rounds, and it was, bear in mind, I've never been in the corner in my life. So it was like organisation with like organising the changing room with Carl, just like helping him do stuff, which was Dom's second, and then making sure that he's got ice water, ice towel in the corner, timing the rounds, and like giving clear instructions as to where we were in the round to Dom and everyone else. And then passing the water, passing the towel and what have you in between rounds. And then can't remember what round we got to, but it was just like, Cal was like, Dom, we've run out of Vaseline. I was like, it's like, what do you mean we've run out of Vaseline? So it's like, we've run out of it. I was like, we're not got any more.
It got cut across the eyebrow.
He did a good job of stemming that blood flow, but Vaseline. Yeah. So it was like, Alan, you'll have to go get some Vaseline. I was like, where from our changing room? I was like, I don't think we've got any.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, right, okay.
So it's all like whilst the fight's going on.
This is while the fight's going on.
Yeah.
So end of round, whatever, we have to try and see what round it was. So it's a long walk from the changing rooms to the ring.
Yeah.
Because it was outdoor stadium. So round whatever went, and I've sprinted back past all the seating in the front row, back into the stadium, then gone back into the corridor, trying to remember which way we've come out, because I've only walked it once as we've came out. Try to remember where our changing room is. Gone into our changing room, rummaged around, clock's ticking, thinking we need this for the next round. Rummaged around, looked in everywhere, turned it upside down, no Vaseline whatsoever. Gone into like the next, I can't remember what corner we're in. Let's say we're in the blue corner. Gone into the next blue changing rooms, looked in there, nothing. And then I've burst into Sean Porter's dressing room. And I think it was his anyway. Burst in, and there's some guys watching the fight on a little TV screen in the corner. And I was like, in a Yorkshire accent, have you got any Vaseline? Just turned around and looked at me. It's like, over there on the, luckily, over there. Grabbed it, legged it out of the change room, back through the stand.
Did all that in 3 minutes?
Did it all in 3 minutes.
Should have a heart rate monitor on to see where your heart rate was. But I think that's a great story, because like things can go wrong on fight night, and sometimes the coaches, obviously, they're thinking about tactics for the fight and getting the fighter ready. They can sometimes forget some stuff.
Yeah.
The boxer is definitely thinking about the fight. Yeah. You want to try and take off that mental load as much as you can. Yeah. And I've said this on the podcast before, like how to prepare an athlete for fight night and everything, even in their warm-up, even if it's a warm-up that they've done before, time and time again. On fight night, sometimes they'll just look at you like, what's next? Because their mind's on something else. Yeah. So I've learned that from a very early stage of going, right, you're going to coach this athlete through every step of the warm-up because you want it for them to just do it on autopilot and them to be thinking about the fight. And then that goes with everything with their supplements as well. Left it to a boxer like, right, you got your pre-fight snack, you got your pre-fight supplements, everything. Like, no, I don't, I brought it. Yeah. So just kind of taking that away from them, making sure you're organised and you can talk as a team to make sure that everything's sorted, so you're not looking for Vaseline in between rounds, a stadium that you haven't been before. But like, there's all them little things if you talk together as a team and you can, right, what can I be responsible for? And like, even though you feel like, as a sports scientist, as an S&C coach, you feel like you're part of the team, but you're outside of the boxing team. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you can't contribute towards like organisation. And also that is also appreciated as well. It's not like, oh, he's stepping into our realm kind of thing. Yeah. He's still appreciated to come in and help in that way. So if any like kind of practitioners watching this and they're going into their first like fight night, changing room and everything like that, just having that open conversation about like, right, this is what I will organise, and is there anything else that we can help with? Yeah. So that fight, Kell Brook becomes welterweight world champion. Yeah. Unbelievable moment. Yeah. You jumped very high.
I was pretty good at jumping.
Pretty good at jumping. He out-jumped everyone, even Eddie Hearn, who's about 6'5".
It's
So unbelievable moment, and probably like at the time it was celebrated, and it was celebrated a lot, but probably not as appreciated, like, because history is kind to a lot of things. One, how many kind of British boxers go overseas and beat an American undefeated to win a world title.
How many have done it since?
Yeah, not many people did it before. Not many people done it since. And Sean Porter went on to have an unbelievable career, as did Kell. Yeah. But Sean Porter, like the people that he boxed and everything, that win got even better. So we've got to come back onto kind of Kell and Bit, because we'll talk about the Golovkin fight as well. But we wanted to kind of stay within that 2014 period, because we were talking about scientific evidence, the challenges of working with Kell, not knowing like kind of how like the data and the evidence for training justifications. So at the same time, I was doing my master's, coming up with a dissertation, a research project, and I decided to do testing battery for boxing, because like with Kell and other fighters, you were testing them, but you couldn't tell them like how they compared to their peers. You had to find different sports. So I remember like you comparing the 30-15 test with Kell with a hockey player, and that wouldn't really sit well with Kell being wanting to be a world champion boxer. He wants to see how he compares to others, as does every boxer. Wants to know whether they're 12-round fit. I always get that question all the time. Yeah. So with the boxing science testing battery, decided to look at their mobility, their strength, the speed, the power, and also their high intensity fitness as well. We got about 30 boxers, amateur boxers, coming in on 2 occasions, so get test and retest reliability. And the data that we got from that was so pivotal, because we found so many correlations. And I kept messaging Alan, because Alan was my supervisor on it. And I kept messaging him saying, I think it's done now. And he was like, no, do this correlation, to just find as much. Because I can't work out how many data sets we actually had, but there probably wasn't a time in boxing history where you got 30 athletes on a range of different tests that you can perform so many different correlations to try and find out like what contributed towards successful performance. Yeah. So like anybody kind of watching this with getting a data set is trying to get as much data as he can and do as much analysis as he can, because all I wanted to do with that data set is find out what is poor, what is excellent, what is average, bang in the middle. And I can compare athletes and decide what category that they need to go in and what they need to work on. However, with working with yourself, what I decided to do is do these correlations where I'm then finding out what is successful to boxing performance. So we did the medicine ball punch throw as an estimate for punching power, hand speed. And we did correlations with lean muscle mass of the core, lean muscle mass, fat-free mass, jump height, press ups, 5 meter, 10 meter sprint time, range of different performance tests. And that actually really helps, because that gave us like strong justifications of what correlates to the punch. So people that watch boxing science quite often will know that some of our like training philosophies, jump higher, punch harder, because there's strong correlations with jump high and medicine ball punch throw distance. Stronger core, punch harder, because the lean muscle mass of the core contributed towards the punch. We found out that press up strength didn't really correlate that well in strength endurance.
Well, 60-second press up test.
60-second press up test, and that didn't really sit well with their taper. Doing the sprints, so sprint speed,
repeated sprints,
didn't really work. And then obviously we did the yo-yo test as well. So with the testing battery, that was really big. Then we had 30 athletes, and then now that's a database of over 500, 600 athletes.
Yeah, and the tests have got more advanced, and we've deleted some of the tests as well. So like the yo-yo test wasn't really discriminant of performance because of the contraindicators to injury of turning, but also the skill of slowing down, turning, accelerating. It's not a natural movement pattern in boxing. So found that out. 60-second press up test doesn't feature at all now, really. We've advanced the med ball test as well.
The landmine punch throw.
So we've got, we learned a lot. So we got some really good evidence, but we also learn about the challenges of testing and what tests we could do, what tests we couldn't do, what we would like to do, how we could advance things as well. So it was a good learning opportunity from both those perspectives in gaining those normative standards, understanding what physical characteristics related to performance, and also what we could do and what we couldn't do.
Yeah, definitely. And like how that has developed now is something that I'm really proud of for boxing science, because I think like that is our foundations, that's our USP, that's what probably sets us apart from the rest, because we have got this massive database where we can really highlight where an athlete needs to improve on. And it's like I had a group of young amateur boxers, and they did tests, and you could see them all. I got I don't really do this often, but I printed them out for them so they can see it, and not just on the screens. So they're all there and they're all comparing, they're looking at each other's. And I just went, right, put your hands up if you've got all greens. So green meaning excellent. Don't put the hand up. Put your hand up if they got all reds. No one put their hand up. Right. Tell me, put your hands up if you've got a mixture of greens, bit of oranges, bit of reds. Everyone put their hands up. And every single test that I've done, I've never had anybody that is all green. I've had a few people that might be all red. A little bit orange in there. But most people that come into the program have got areas that they're strong in and areas for improvement. And they're all different all the time. Sometimes I can tell by looking at the boxing style, and sometimes it'll surprise me. So it's really important to have that, to give them strong training justifications for the program on a whole. So we know what is important for elite performance, but for that individual to help them, and then gauge whether we do go for them areas for improvements or we try and change them strengths into super strengths. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. We've still got like a lot of the tests that we did back in 2014. You mentioned the lactate profile. That's something that we still do now. We do the 30-second Wingate assessment, which is good for power endurance and helps us with our prescription for 30-second max out sprints and sprint interval training. The 30-15 test is something that we don't do that often now, but it's something that we encourage people to do on our Train Like Champion programs and everything. The 30-15 test, tell me about how that came about, because obviously we had the yo-yo test that we had with the groups, but then when you was working with the high-end professionals, you developed the treadmill version of the 30-15 test. Tell me how that came about.
So if we think about the two things, one is, what do boxers do traditionally for conditioning? And it's typically long, slow runs on the road. And then contrast that with the demands of the sport, which is high intensity, intermittent activity. And some of the early research on the performance analysis of boxers and other combat sports. And you quickly see that there's some disparity between traditional conditioning methods and the nature and the demands of the sport. And if you look at how intensity progresses through the standards and levels of the sport, it clearly gets more intense as you go through. But those activity rest ratios are relatively similar. So you then start to like build a picture, and you kind of get it with the yo-yo test, and you look at other sports as well, and you think, yeah, the higher performers, they're, performing better on these intermittent type tests. And one test that was emerging to be quite a reliable test for one thing, which is what we really strive for in sports science, but also one that had good discriminant validity in order that it could identify standards of performance, was a 30-15 test. So that's 30 seconds of running at a predetermined speed with 15 seconds recovery. Next stage gets faster. So it's a bit like the bleep test, a bit like the yo-yo test. But it's performed on a court or on a field. So it still has that change of direction. So I modified the test, took the speeds, and just programmed a treadmill protocol for that test. And we just got the boxes on it. It was like, right, okay, so, your, world level standard, you get on there. Your European standard, you get in there. Your, young amateur, let's test you. And we started then building up a database, didn't we, of test results, and like, young amateurs were maybe getting like 20 kilometers per hour, and then like ones that were pro or early pro 22 kilometers per hour. We're like, hang on, we're getting on something here. European international level were 23s, and then the tops were like 24s. So it was able then to discriminate between different standards of performance, and it was also good because we could take the speeds that the boxers were running at and then program based upon their 30-15 speed. So we could be more precise in their like 30-30s, for example, or even if they were replicating, 30-15s, and work off that, and work off the work that Martin Bukai had done based upon the 30-15 and how we'd program work rest intervals on there as well. And that's how the 30-15 test came about. So it's a super easy test to do, to program it. Not easy when you get into the higher intensities, but it does give us a better indication of an athlete's ability to perform at a high intensity with very short recoveries, which we know is really important from a performance perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the 30-15 test, I think it's really like the reason why we don't do it as much now is because we find out a lot more about like the physiology and how they're responding to them high intensities. So we wanted to look at the lactate, heart rate, power endurance is the main thing as well. And also we haven't got a treadmill that's big enough to do the 30-15 and robust enough as well. But that for like a lot of like amateur professional boxers as well, that might not have the access to these labs and everything like that. It's a really simple test to do. So it starts off at 8 kilometers an hour, do 30 seconds, step off the treadmill, 15 seconds, then you increase it by 0.5 kilometers an hour. And then you repeat that all the way up until you can't do no more. And what's really important there as well is taking your heart rate after every stage, because then you get a trend of like kind of how you are responding, because you're talking about the amateurs and the professionals and the elite. The difference between 20 and 22 and 22 and 24 doesn't seem that much, because that is their absolute max effort. To get that little bit more, and look at like kind of the PBs that have just been in the Olympics or the world records at Olympics, it's like in tens, hundreds, even thousandth of a second improvements. So that maximum effort can only just shift that little bit. What we want to see is like kind of how they're responding at each level. Seeing the heart rate come down by 10 beats per minute shows that they're becoming more efficient at them intensities. And
one other subtle thing that is really, it's hard to quantify, you just have to do this, qualitatively, is when you've got an athlete that has, let's say, has got to 23.5 kilometers per hour and they're absolutely pushing it to their maximum, and they're, going, no, I don't want to do any more. If you can say, I want you to do just one more step on that next level upwards, the ones that get on and do an extra step or a few steps and just try to do something at that next level and push themselves to that next level is also indicative of their performance standard as well. So all of the top boxers that we've had in that are challenging for world titles will always go on and try and do that little bit more.
Yeah.
They'll never give in until their body gives in. Whereas we've had other boxers in that have gone, right, step on, let's go for another bit. And they've just gone, no.
Yeah.
And they've not been able to push on to that.
What we need is Chris Eubank Senior saying, you can have to quit. but yeah, again, talking about the Warriors Code. But yeah, absolutely. And I was on a podcast with Pete Olasoga and Jordan Gill, and we're talking about the mindset and the psychology of fighters. Podcast is 80% mental. So if you haven't listened to that, have a listen to that. So myself and Jordan were like kind of talking about like the psychology of fighting. And obviously he's talking about from his perspective, and I'm talking it from like how an S&C coach can influence it, and kind of what I see from working with all these fighters. And Jordan said one of the main things that from a world-class fighter is that they've got to have a bit of dog in them.
Yeah.
And have that ability to dig in and get through them dark days. And I agreed with it. And I said about the 30-15 test, being like kind of that, not only a physiological test, but a psychological test at the same time. Have you got that dog in you to be able to get back on that treadmill? And even though running and boxing, totally different things, you can be really fit, but might not be able to punch through a paper bag. But these guys can punch through a paper bag and some. So the fighters are then getting on that treadmill. They're showing that they've got that elite mindset, that mentality to keep on digging. And if I think about the best performers on that 30-15 test, they're either being world champions or above European Commonwealth champions as well. You've got people like Jordan Gill, Lee Wood, Kid Galahad, Kell, Brook, Billy Joe Saunders. Yeah. Billy Joe Saunders like surprised me so much in terms of his fitness, because I looked at his heart rates, and I'd used to go to Alan, I'd go, right, this is what level they're going to get to. And I'd always be like around about 1 or 2 levels out. Billy Joe just went, I was like looking at his heart rates thinking he's not going to last much longer. But he just went on and went on and went on and did not have any quitting in whatsoever.
He was crazy. I had him in the altitude tent once.
Yeah.
Checking his O2 sats as we do, because we've got to pull them out if it gets too low. Yeah. And he had the lowest O2 saturation I've ever seen. Yeah. And was still
undisclosed in case we get people knocking on our door.
It was still going. It was like, we need to get you out because you're going to pass out in a second.
Yeah, he had that ability to dig in. Josh Taylor, just before his run to be undisputed champion. Jamie McDonnell, Gavin McDonnell, like Jamie, you got him to try and do one more sprint when he was absolutely caning it, and to a point where he was just like literally heaped in the harness, couldn't do anymore. People like Fabio Wardley, but he got up to like level 22 when he's a heavyweight fighter. So we've seen some really good, strong performances on that 30-15 test. Yeah. And it's like, I can't think of anybody that kind of goes into there that hasn't achieved anything. Like they've all been champions, and they've all shown in fights that they've got the dog in them as well. Yeah.